Chapter 10, Part 2. Every window in the building was now belching white smoke, and the picture seemed to have gone washed out and pale, because there were no more vivid orange flames against the darkness. The fire was simply gone. I really don't know what's happened, Regina. I think I can safely say that everybody here is very thankful. The camera zoomed in on the face in the window. It was still difficult to make out features, but Jazz could see coffee-colored skin and what seemed to be a calm expression. Then a hand reached out to gently pick up one of the melted plastic buckets and take it inside. The picture froze. Morgan had hit pause. They never did figure out what stopped the fire. It went out everywhere, all at once, as if it had been smothered. Jazz could see where he was going. And you think it was some sort of power that killed it? I don't know, Morgan. It's a pretty big assumption. And to jump from that to the idea that it was a wild power, you missed it then. Morgan sounded smug. Missed what? He was reversing the tape, going back to the moment before the fire went out. I almost missed it myself when I saw it live. It was lucky I was taping it. When I went back and looked again, I could see it clearly. The tape was in slow motion now. Jazz saw the burst of orange fire, frame by frame, getting larger. She saw it curl up to engulf the window, and then there was a flash. It had only showed up as a flicker at normal speed, easily mistaken for some kind of camera problem. At this speed, though, Jazz couldn't mistake it. It was blue. It looked like lightning or flame, blue-white with a halo of more intense blue around it. And it moved. It started out smaller, a circular spot right at the window. In the next frame, it was much bigger, spreading out in all directions, fingers reaching into the flames. In the next frame, it covered the entire TV screen, seeming to engulf the fire. In the next frame, it was gone and the fire was gone with it. White smoke began to creep out of windows. Jazz was riveted. Got it, she whispered. Blue fire. Morgan ran the tape back to play the scene again. Morgan ran the tape back to play the scene again. In blue fire, the final darkness is banished. In blood, the final price is paid. If that girl isn't a wild power, Jazz, then what is she? You tell me. I don't know. Jazz bit her lips slowly, watching the strange thing blossom on the TV again. So the blue fire in the poem meant a new kind of energy. You're beginning to convince me, but look, everybody knows that one of the wild powers is in San Francisco. One of the old hags in the witch circle, Grandma Herman or somebody, had a dream about it. She saw the blue fire in front of Coet's Tower or something. And everybody knows that the four wild powers are supposed to start manifesting themselves around now. I think that girl did it for the first time when she realized she was going to die, when she got that desperate. Jazz could picture that kind of desperation. She pictured it the first time when she'd been watching the fire live. How it must feel, being trapped like that, knowing that there was no earthly help for you, that you were about to experience the most terrible pain imaginable, knowing that you were going to feel your body char and your hair burn like a torch, and that it would take 2 or 3 endless minutes before you died, and the horror was over. Yeah, you would be desperate, all right, knowing all that might drag a new power out of you, a frantic burst of strength, like an unconscious scream pulled from the depths of yourself. But one thing bothered her. If this kid is the wild power, why didn't her circle notice what happened? Why didn't she tell them? Hey guys, look, I can put out fires now. Morgan looked annoyed. What do you mean, her circle? Well, she's a witch, right? You're not telling me vampires or shapeshifters are developing new powers like that. Who said anything about witches or vampires or shapeshifters? The kid's human. Jazz blinked and blinked again, trying to conceal the extent of her astonishment. For a moment, she thought Morgan was putting her on, but his green eyes were simply aspirated, not sly. The wild powers can be human? Morgan smiled suddenly, a smirk. You really didn't know. You haven't heard all the prophecies, have you? He struck a mocking oratorical pose. There's supposed to be one from the land of kings long forgotten, one from the hearth which still holds the spark, one from the day world where two eyes are watching, one from the twilight to be one with the dark. The day world, Jess thought, not the night world, the human world. At least one of the wild powers had to be human. Unbelievable, but why not? Wild powers were supposed to be weird. Then she thought of something and her stomach sank. No wonder you're so eager to turn her in, she said softly, not just to get a reward, but because the little scum deserves to die, or whatever it is Hunter has in mind for her. Morgan's voice was matter of fact. Yeah, vermin have no right developing night world powers, right? Of course, right, Jazz said without emotion. I'm going to have to watch this kid every minute, she thought. He's got no pity at all for her. Goddess knows what he might do before letting me have her. Jazz? Morgan's voice was soft, almost pleasant, but it caught Jazz's full attention. Why didn't Hunter tell you that prophecy? The council dug it up last week. She glanced at him and felt an inner shiver. Suspicion was cold in the depths of his green eyes. When Morgan was yelling and furious, he was dangerous enough. But when he was quiet like this, he was deadly. I have no idea, she said flatly, tossing the problem back at him. Maybe because I was already out here in California when they figured it out. But why don't you call him and ask yourself? I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. There was a pause. Then Morgan gave her a look of disgust and turned away. A good bluff is priceless, Jazz thought. It was safe now to move on. She said, so what do the two eyes watching me in the prophecy? He rolled his own eyes. How should I know? You figure it out. You've always been the smart one. Despite the heavy sarcasm, Jazz felt a different kind of shiver, one of surprise. He really believed that. Morgan was so smart himself. He seen that flicker on the TV screen and realized what it was, when apparently none of the adults in the Bay Area had, but he thought she was smarter. Well, you seem to be doing all right yourself, she said. She had been looking steadily at him to show him no weakness, and she saw his expression change. His green eyes softened slightly, and the sarcastic quirk of his lips straightened. Nah, I'm just blundering along, he muttered, his gaze shifting. Then he glanced back, and somehow they were caught in a moment when when they, suddenly they were caught in a moment when they were just looking at each other in silence. Neither of them turned away, and Jared's heart gave a strange thump. The moment stretched. Idiot, this is ridiculous. A minute ago you were scared of him, not to mention sickened by his attitude toward humans. You can't just suddenly switch to this. But it was no good. Even the realization that she was in danger of her life didn't help. Jazz couldn't think of a thing to say to break the tension, and she couldn't seem to look away from Morgan. Jazz, look. He leaned forward and put a hand on her forearm. He didn't even seem to know he was doing it. His expression was abstracted now, and his eyes were fixed on hers. His hand was warm. Tingles spread from the place where it touched Jazz's skin. Jazz, about before, I didn't Suddenly, Jazz's heart was beating far too quickly. I have to say something, she thought, fighting to keep her face impassive. But her throat was dry and her mind a humming blank. All she could feel clearly was the place where she and Morgan touched. All she could see clearly was his eyes, cat's eyes, deep as emerald, with shifting green lights in them. Jazz, he said a third time, and Jazz realized all at once that the silver thread between them hadn't been broken, that it might be stretched almost into invisibility, but it was still there, still pulling, trying to make her body go weak and her vision blur, trying to make her fall toward Morgan even as he was falling toward her. And then came the sound of someone kicking in the front door. The end of chapter 10, part 2.